everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, The Cost of Not Being Influential and Not Being Persuasive when you're public speaking, when you're presenting, when you're facilitating a group of people. So welcome everyone, those attending live and those viewing this video later on. Influence. Generally, when we stand up and speak, when we present to a group of people, we do it for a reason. We want something to happen, something to change, something to be done a different way, for people to think differently. And in order to be impactful, in order to have that change, we as the speaker need to be influential. But there's greater things associated with your ability to influence and persuade people. So in today's webinar, I want to focus on some of the costs, some of the problems if we're not influential when we stand up and public speak. And I often use the saying, if you're not influential, if people don't do something different, then you're just hot air. And we don't want to be hot air when we take the courage to stand up and speak. We want to have impact, and that's where influencing and persuasion comes in. So Peter Dhu is my name, public speaking trainer and coach. My passion, helping you find your voice so you can effectively make a difference in your world, in your workplace, in your community. Allow me to share my screen. The cost of not being influential when public speaking, when presenting. The cost of not being persuasive when public speaking and when presenting. As always, just a little bit of housekeeping. Do ask questions as we go. I will keep an eye on the question box. Welcome those who've just joined. Participate by putting in comments, writing questions, your own experience of when maybe you've failed to be influential and what the consequence for you was. Feel free to take notes. As I mentioned before we went live, I do record this webinar, so the recording is available. So don't worry about copious notes. You can always review the video in your own time and think and apply to your own self in your presentations, in the workshops or trainings you run. Are any of these consequences impacting you and your ability to be persuasive and influential? And of course, the flip side of this, a webinar coming up in the future, is how can I be more influential? Peter, what are some of your influencing skills? That's for another webinar. Today, the cost of not being influential and persuasive. So first of all, what is influence? I think influence is painting a picture, a vision, and people get to follow. They want to follow. They want to come on board. They want a bit of that. They want to be part of it. So influencing is definitely a leadership trait. And it's one of those things where you paint a picture, a scenario that people say, aha, I would really consider that. So influence versus persuasion. Persuasion is more you're trying to encourage or coerce someone to your way of thinking. And the metaphor I would use is, in influencing, someone walks past your door and they want to walk into your shop. Persuasion is when someone's outside spruiking and say, yeah, you should go in, the menu's very good, the prices are good, we've got a great variety. So you're trying to persuade. And influencing is more of a leadership skill and doesn't come from a positional power. I don't have to have positional power, authority to influence you. Generally, to persuade someone, that's when people are trying to push or use their positional power to some extent to persuade someone that this is what we need to do. So where possible, I think influence is the more powerful of the skills and an important skill for anyone when they're presenting, anyone in a leadership role, to be influential. And then, of course, we have influence versus manipulation. Now, both influence and persuasion come from a position, influence painting that vision, that picture, persuasion trying to encourage, to coerce, to push you to adopt this way of thinking. Both influence and persuasion come from a position that in your heart as the speaker, in your heart as the leader, you truly believe with your wisdom, your experience, your knowledge, your research, you truly believe that this is the best way forward for the organisation, for the team, or even for the individual. You believe in your heart that this is the best way forward. Manipulation can use the same tools as influence and the same tools as persuasion, but manipulation is you're doing it for yourself. So if people do this, you win. You get the promotion, you get the commission, you get the accolades. So you're persuading people to do something so that you get the pats on the back. There's nothing really in it for them. It's mostly for you. So influence and manipulation comes down to your intention. Influence and persuasion, your intention is to make the place better, to come up with a better way of doing things. So you want to influence people or persuade, but influencing is, I feel, the greater of the two. Influence people to come across to your way of thinking. Manipulation, you can use the same tools, but your underlying intention is that you are the person who benefits from the change, from people adopting what you're suggesting. So when I teach influence, I get people to promise they won't use the tools, the skills to manipulate people. They always use them to influence people. So the cost of not being influential when you're on the platform, when you're before a group of people, when you're public speaking. Missed opportunities. So if we're not influential, our communication doesn't create that vision, then the opportunity to collaborate with someone else, someone who might come up and say, hey, I'd like to work with you. Myself, my wife, and another young engineer have been running for 7 years a leadership program. And it was the other person who approached us after hearing myself and my wife speak. And we influenced them. And they approached us and said, I'd love to work with you and put together a leadership program. Now, leadership is not my forte. I'm a public speaking person, and leadership's not really my wife's forte. She's a difficult conversation person. But this person had the leadership skills and could see how bringing the three together, how to have difficult conversations. Leaders need to have difficult conversations, presentation skills. Leaders need to be able to present, and the understanding of leadership styles would make a perfect opportunity. So for 7 years, because we influenced someone, we had this collaboration, this advancement, and we've had great impact on people. So it's that painting the vision of what if, what could be a better world. If you're not influential, then those opportunities may be missed. From an organisation or from a team perspective, from your workplace perspective. Credibility is everything whenever we're speaking. Credibility matters. Credibility is linked to trust. And trust is linked to being able to influence people. If people don't trust you, they will not buy your idea, your thoughts, your vision, your way forward, because they don't trust you. And one of the keys of being influential and the keys of being seen as trustworthy is, where does your credibility come from? So if you are not influential, then your credibility will disappear. It'll diminish in the eyes of your audience. You won't be seen as an authority. You won't be seen as an expert. You won't be perceived as someone who should be talking on this area or has a right to ask me to change, to consider a new way of doing things. So the trust doesn't come out when you speak if you're not influential, if you're not persuasive as a public speaker. And then you lose that opportunity, you lose the ability to influence. That moment you get before an audience that may be vulnerable, that may need the information you've got, and because you're not influential and that credibility disappears, you do not have the impact that you were hoping to have. If you are not influential, then the communication may fail. I was reading some statistics the other day in big business, and for every $1 billion worth of project spending, and $1 billion is not necessarily a lot in project spending, for every $1 billion, 35 million is lost as a result of poor communication. So that lack of influence can lead to this misunderstanding, the miscommunication. You'll be seen as not being able to truly articulate your vision and the passion and the strategy that you're talking about may not come through. Poor communication costs organisations a lot, not just in projects. Then we talk about the misunderstandings, the difficult conversations, the dismissals, the coaching conversations that occur purely because of missed communication, misunderstanding. I remember the latter years of my mother and father, and they were married for 50 years. And, you know, husbands and wives have ups and downs, partners have ups and downs, arguments. But I remember the last 5 years, 90% of the arguments, my mother lost her hearing. Her hearing became really bad and she hated hearing aids. And most of the arguments they had when I was there were not from things they disagreed on, but from things that Mum thought she'd heard and the miscommunication. So you need to be influential when you're on stage. You need to be persuasive. Otherwise, poor communication may kick in and cost money, cost opportunities, cost budget blowouts. Misconnections, networking, being influential when you're at a conference, when you're speaking, when you're with a group of people. This is how we connect with people. And even introverts like myself understand the importance of connections. Connections are what get me my business. Connections are what get me my work. I'm not a social media influencer. I'm not good at Facebook ads. I'm not good at marketing. It's your connections that will help you find answers to solutions. Often recruitment to fill positions that are vacant occur through word of mouth and through networking. I believe less than 50% of vacant jobs are ever advertised on seek.com and other places because the positions are filled through referral, through networkings. So if you're not influential, then you're going to miss that myriad of opportunities that will occur. People that will connect you with someone else. This is the leadership person that we were connected with. And then someone else connects us with a problem-solving person and we have another opportunity. You have another opportunity. So misconnections. It's the influence that helps us to forge those meaningful connections, not only with your audience, but so the audience goes away and talks about you. If you're not influential, then you're not front of mind when that audience goes out, back to their workplace, back to their community, and has a problem. And because you weren't influential, you're not front of mind, and they start to Google and they go somewhere else where you may be the right person and may have the answer. So influence is about forging meaningful connections with your audience and outside your audience. It's helping your audience then connect and keep that message going with other people. And one of the things I say is that I hope if you ever have a colleague, so this is to people in my workshop, if you ever have a colleague or you ever have a friend who you feel needs help with public speaking, maybe they have a wedding speech coming up, that when they say, oh, do you know of anyone? What should I do? I'm really nervous. That Peter Dhu and his public speaking training comes to front of mind. That would be the case if I was influential. That would be the case if you're influential, that in your area of expertise, people would talk about your service, talk about your name, talk about how you can help people. That's the importance of being influential and the connecting and the networking. The lost opportunity, you don't make those networks and those connections. Pause for a moment. Questions? Q&A, chat. So opportunities for leadership. I mentioned that influencing is a leadership skill. And as leaders, we have our positional power, but we also have our personal power. And the personal power is the influencing. I guess one's the stick and one's the carrot, although persuasion is also the carrot. So I don't want to get you to change or think or consider another way of doing things from my positional power because I'm your boss, because I'm your lecturer, I'm your university lecturer. I'd rather you come to those thoughts, come to that decision based on my influencing power, my personal power, the ability to paint that vision. So if you're not influential, you lose that opportunity to be seen, to be perceived as a leader, as leadership material. And this can affect you both in terms of your career, but it means that you don't get to articulate that compelling vision. And if you're not influential, people are less likely to share their ideas. One of the things that great leaders encourage from their team is for people to put forward different ideas, so divergent thinking, even to disagree or to dissent with what you're saying. And that creates a great, vibrant, creative, innovative environment. If you're not influential, people may not disagree with you. They may not say, well, what about this? Or here's another way of thinking about it, and we lose that creativity. So effective leaders need to be able to adapt and communicate with different people and be influential with that vision, that idea of the future, that better way forward. So if you are not influential when you're speaking at a team meeting, in front of a group of colleagues, in front of potential clients, then you've lost that opportunity to lead change, to lead a better outcome, to lead a better future for those individuals who may be suffering, whether that's from carers, WA, whether that's from the mining sector, whether that's from a health and safety perspective, whether that's from a mental health perspective. And of course, we've spoken about the team, we've spoken about the clients, we've spoken about the organisation, about project monies being wasted. due to poor communication. But how about yourself? What about your personal and professional growth? If you're not seen as influential, you may not be seen as leadership material. You may not get the tap on the shoulder to do that acting role, to act up when someone's on annual leave or long service leave. You may not be offered the interview because you're just not seen as influential. So being influential is important in our own career and personal growth. And we're growing in our personal growth because we feel in our heart that we have something to contribute, not because we want to manipulate the interview panel and we want to get the promotion and then we want to get higher up, we want to get more money so we can buy a bigger house. It's about being influential because we believe we're the right person for that job, for that position, for that conference presentation. So the cost of not being influential, not being persuasive as an individual is you miss out on a lot of opportunities, career-wise, job opportunities, sharing your knowledge and expertise. There we have it. 6 costs of not being influential. 6 impediments of not being influential. And 6 reasons, if you flip it, why we need to become more influential. Missed opportunities. If you're not influential, those opportunities that tend to surface with influential people may not occur. Our credibility may come down and our ability to influence people to a better way of life, to a better way of thinking is lost because of our decreased credibility. Poor communication, failed communication costs businesses a lot of money from a project perspective and in other areas as well, in team leadership, in team building, in culture. An influential leader, an influential person can create a great culture of support in an organisation. Your connections, influence enables you to build those networks. Your leadership opportunity lost, and of course, don't forget your own individual growth. Not seen as influential. I don't think Peter's up for the job. He just doesn't seem to step up, doesn't seem to have any impact when he takes the stage, when he presents, when he leads the meeting. We need to look somewhere else. So, 6 costs of not being influential. And the next question becomes, so Peter, how do I be more influential? And we'll leave that for another webinar. Coming up, we have workshops in Port Hedland. If you know anyone in Port Hedland, Main Roads, Water Corp, BHP, Karratha, same again. This is in April. Anyone in Main Roads, Water Corp, Rio, feel free to share this information. Upcoming workshops in Perth. I ran a series of workshops late in February, and we're going to run them again in April, end of April, as a result of popular demand. People said, oh, we've got a few other staff who'd be interested in these workshops. My next upcoming webinar on the 8th of April, 5 ways to continue to improve your public speaking. This comes about from people feeling that they've done a workshop, they've done some coaching, and they've nailed it, and they don't need to do any more work. I'm a lifelong learner. I'm learning my public speaking trade as I go. I have a lot to learn. I'm attending a conference, yes, this week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Professional Speakers Australia National Conference to learn and improve on my public speaking. 5 ways to continuously improve your public speaking. You know how to reach me if you've got any further questions. Peter Dhu is my name, public speaking trainer and coach. As I thank you, remember, influence, persuasion is really important. The cost of not being influential is significant. So please try and work on your influencing skills. And I look forward to being of service to you sometime in the future. 5 minutes early, go out there, change your world one conversation at a time, and learn to be influential from your heart. This is the right thing to do. This is the best way forward for your clients. This is Peter Dhu, a public speaking trainer and coach. Bye for now.